What's going on, guys? Today's review will be the 2005 Adult Swim series, and that is Robot Chicken. The show is currently airing on Adult Swim, an adult programming block on Cartoon Network, and currently streaming on Max, formerly known as HBO Max, and Hulu, and its beta on Disney+. The series has an opening sequence involving a mad scientist and a chicken set to theme music by Lake Label of Primus. On a dark and stormy night, the scientist finds a chicken that has been the victim of roadkill, and takes it back to his laboratory to refashion into a cyborg. Midway through the opening sequence, the titular chicken turns his laser eye towards the camera and the title appears, just as Lake Label cries, a line from Frankenstein, "It's alive." The mad scientist then straps the reanimated robot chicken into a chair, uses calipers to hold his eyes open and forces him to watch a grid of television monitor showing different content, akin to imagery from A Clockwork Orange. The sketches are interspersed with static, resembling the act of channel surfing. While the sketches lampoon various aspects of pop culture quite randomly, they frequently parody DC Comics superheroes as well as many other franchises such as Star Wars, the Marvel superheroes, Transformers, the Smurfs, Scooby-Doo, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Star Trek, and many more. Original characters include the nerd, the humping robot, and the show's creators as themselves, often facing potential cancellation at the end of a season, as well as the mad scientist and the robot chicken. The writing for this show may not be the most clever, and yes, it does heavily rely on pop culture references, randomness, and crude humor, but the writers somehow found a way to make it work. Yes, it is very stupid, but the show embraces it. And it does manage to be very funny with all the sketches and parodies. But the writing was a bit more sporadic and bumpy in Season 1, as while it was a decent season, they didn't quite get their grasp yet. But the writing did start to improve with Season 2 onward and they managed to find their identity. The show I think has a very solid sense of humor, as I found many of the jokes and humorous moments to be very funny, like the witty banter and dialogue, the goofy and insane situations and shenanigans the characters in the skits get into. The parodies of pop culture franchises and icons are handled very well. A lot of the crude slapstick and quick gags are hilarious. The timing is pretty solid. It has the type of dark, gross out, and mean-spirited humor that does manage to get a good laugh most of the time, and even the crude nature of the animation can get a laugh. But I will say sometimes it can get a bit too dark and depressing, it can get a bit too gross, and some of the more random skits, specifically during Season 1, are kinda lame. The stop-motion animation is pretty solid, as the puppets they use are very well sculpted and designed, and sometimes they use pre-existing action figures and dolls. Their movements are pretty decent, the backdrops and settings are well crafted, and there are some nice effects used like the water, fire, explosions, blood and gore, and the use of CGI. The characters aren't really supposed to be complex and are mainly used to get the jokes across, but they do manage to be pretty likable and memorable, like the robot chicken himself, the awkward but lovable nerd, the enthusiastic Daniel aka Gyro Robo, the crazed and villainous mad scientist, the crude and crass pitch pudding, the wacky and suicidal bloopers host, the thrust crazy humping robot, the self-cannibalistic gummy bear, the incompetent aliens, and the more wacky and crazy versions of Seth and Matt. The show also has some very humorous depictions of iconic and beloved pop culture characters, but they do manage to still be pretty likable even with their more goofy nature. List of characters include Batman, Superman, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Optimus Prime, Skeletor, Lion-O, Boba Fett, Doc Brown, the Scooby-Doo Gang, Santa Claus, Jesus, the Smurfs, the Enterprise crew, and many, many more. The voice acting is pretty solid and there are some pretty solid performances as various characters coming from Seth Green, Matthew Senreich, Seth MacFarlane, Breckin Meyer, Katie Sackhoff, Abraham Ben-Rubai, Donald Faison, and even some guest stars like Billy D. Williams, Christopher Lloyd, Mark Hamill, Macaulay Culkin, and tons more. The music is also pretty solid as it does capture the show's comedic and unhinged tone, And there are also some pretty solid and memorable songs like Paying with the Car, Monkeys in Outer Space, Empire on Ice, Weasel Stomping Day, and more. Overall, I know that this show isn't for everyone, but it does have a pretty sizable fan base, and considering my review, I am pretty much in the fan boat. So if you are into very well handled, but also crude and crass humor, check it out. And what is my verdict on this Adult Swim series? I'm rating it a 7 out of 10. I gave a 7 out of 10 because it has counterparts I hate that ruined the shows I like, but still a pretty good show from Adult Swim.
Stupid monkey.